Hey guys, Brad Danger here, and racing liveries are the closest thing motorsport has to religion. People don't just like their favorite paint job, they get it tattooed on their arm, printed on a hoodie, and airbrushed onto a diecast collection that takes up an entire bookshelf. Today we're counting down 14 of the greatest racing liveries of all time, and yes, I already know you're going to disagree with the order. That's basically the whole business model of this video. So grab something to drink, settle in, and prepare to feel a strange, deeply unnecessary emotional connection to cardboard thin vinyl wraps from before some of you were even born. Like, subscribe so we hit 2 mil, and let's start with the Ford Monster Fiesta. Back in 2010, Ken Block, rest in peace, strapped a Monster Energy wrap on a Ford Fiesta and somehow made it look like the car itself was a mild rager. Neon green claw marks, that unmistakable M logo plastered everywhere, and just enough chaos to match a guy who was about to spend the next decade drifting shipping containers for internet points. It's not the most elegant livery on this list. Elegant was never the assignment. It's loud, it's obnoxious, and it perfectly represents the exact era when energy drink sponsors started replacing tobacco money in motorsport. Somewhere, a marketing executive is very proud of this one, and honestly, they earned it, because you remember this car and you probably don't remember half the cars actually beating it. If you've watched any GT racing lately, you already know Rexie, the pink dinosaur themed Porsche that AO Racing rolled out and somehow made into one of the most recognizable liveries in modern sports car racing. A cartoon T-Rex on a factory-backed GT3 car should just not work, and yet here we are with grown adults buying merchandise of a dinosaur because it's slapped on a race car going nearly 190 miles per at Daytona. Roxy followed as the equally ridiculous, equally beloved counterpart. This entry proves that in an era of increasingly sterile corporate liveries, sometimes the winning move is just committing fully to just being silly. Okay guys, and I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I will tell you that it's bigger than the last one. It's moving faster and you're going to love it. We already gave one winner his pick of a Fast and Furious Supra or a Shelby GT350. He took the Shelby. Another winner took home a flame-spitting R35 GTR. Another walked with 100 grand cash. Yes, real winners, real faces, no rigged wheels. No follow 12 influencers nonsense. This next giveaway is the best one yet. Links pinned below. Tap it, sign up, go look at the past winners and what they walked away with. It's closer than you think. All right, back to the show. Now, before Mazda was winning Le Mans outright with that screaming rotary engine, just listen, baby. Oh, brother. They were running the Renown livery on their touring cars and prototypes. A wild combination of red, white, and that unmistakable Japanese sponsorship energy from the 80s. It's a deep cut, sure, but it's the kind of deep cut that JDM enthusiasts will absolutely fight you over in the comments section. The layout has that specific era charm where every inch of the car is covered in sponsored logos, yet somehow still looks intentional because a stock car has lost the bet. Okay, say what you want about modern motorsport marketing, but Falken figured out the formula decades ago and never let it go. That old blue and turquoise scheme with the giant Falken lettering has become basically synonymous with the entire American drift scene, whether it's on a Nissan, a Mustang, or whatever chassis Formula Drift decides to bolt a turbo onto this season. It's not subtle, it's not trying to be subtle, and that's exactly why it works. You see that color combo and your brain immediately fills in the smell of a burnt tire smoke. The classic Alfa Romeo factory racing livery, that deep competition red with that little quadrifolio 4-leaf clover badge, is one of those looks that somehow manages to be both understated and completely unmistakable. No massive sponsor logos plastered everywhere, just the color, the badge, and decades of Italian racing heritage doing the talking for you. This is the livery equivalent of showing up to a party in a plain black suit and somehow still being the best dressed person in the room. Every time a modern Alfa slaps this scheme on a new car, enthusiasts collectively lose their minds, and honestly, fair enough. Green and red on white, or something just green and white depending on the decade, the Castrol livery has appeared on more legendary race cars than almost anything else on this list. From Group C prototypes to the Toyota Supra and Gran Turismo that lived in literally every millennial's brain rent-free. Castrols never needed a gimmick, they just needed consistency. And 4 decades later, that green and red combo is still instantly recognizable, even to people who couldn't tell you what motor oil actually does. That's the kind of brand power most companies would sell an organ for, or more, brother. Porsche's Rothmans livery, that blue, gold, and white combination that graced the 956 and the 959, is proof that a cigarette company's marketing department once had a better eye for design than most car manufacturers do today. The proportions, the way the gold splits across the body, the restraint of using just 3 colors instead of covering every panel and noise, it all just works. This livery also somehow ended up defining half of Gran Turismo's box art era, which means an entire generation associates smoking with going really, really fast, which is probably not the message that anyone intended, but here we are. Blue with gold wheels. That's it. That's the pitch. And it might be the single most successful 2-color combination in motorsport history. And it technically happened by accident. The wheels for the redesigned 1997 Impreza WRC were supposed to come back charcoal gray, but the manufacturer shipped out gold by mistake, and the Subaru World Rally Team livery turned the Impreza into a household name well beyond the rally world, largely because every kid who ever played a racing video game in the early 2000s immediately wanted a blue car with gold wheels, the second they were old enough to drive. Colin McRae and Richard Burns spent years hurling these things sideways through forests, and somehow the livery looked just as good covered in mud as it did fresh off the truck. The Lancia Stratos and Fulvia in Alitalia's green, white, and red actually look like they were designed by people who understood color theory, which was apparently a rare skill in the 70s motorsports. Borrowing the colors straight off the Italian flag and the National Airlines branding, this livery somehow manages to look both patriotic and genuinely elegant instead of looking like a flag threw up on a hatchback. It's the kind of design that makes you wonder why anyone ever thought neon green brake calipers were a good idea when this level of restraint existed 50 years earlier. Say what you want about the product itself, and there is plenty to say, but the Marlboro livery across Le Mans, Ferrari, and even Alfa Romeo produced some of the most iconic race cars ever built. That red and white chevron pattern turned into a full-on cultural symbol, to the point where teams kept using red and white color schemes for cigarette-free cars for years afterwards just to keep the vibe alive without technically breaking advertising laws. Whatever you're feeling on tobacco sponsorship, and there should be plenty, you cannot deny this livery, basically defining an entire era of Formula One's visual identity. The black and gold Lotus John Player Special applied first to the Lotus 72 and carried throughout the brand's dominant 70s era. This scheme turned an already gorgeous set of race cars into something that looked genuinely dangerous just sitting still in the paddock. Every gold accent line, every placement of the JPS logo feels deliberate in a way that most modern liveries covered in 40 different sponsor logos crammed onto every available inch could never dream of matching. It's simple, it's intimidating, and it's aged better than almost anything else on this entire list. And my dad, I grew up as a huge Lotus guy, and this is probably my favorite, dare I say, ideal livery on this list. Next, the Gulf livery, that powder blue with orange stripes running down the middle, might be the most recognizable racing scheme on the planet, and it didn't even need a famous driver to get there, though it certainly didn't hurt having Steve McQueen drive one around in a movie about endurance racing, from the Ford GT40 to the McLaren F1 GTR, my grail car, to basically every Gulf-sponsored car since. This scheme has never once looked bad, which is an almost impossible streak to maintain across 5 decades of changing car shapes and racing regulations. Now, before we get into the final 2, if you're anything like me, and you're currently fighting the sudden overwhelming urge to install Forza, boot up the livery editor, and disappear for the next 6 hours creating increasingly unhinged paint schemes for a car that you will drive exactly twice, that's completely normal. That's basically the whole point of this video, and honestly, we should probably apologize for your responsibilities for the rest of your evening right now. Okay, like, subscribe, and yes, the Pink Pig is number 2. And if you have a problem with that, you can take it up with the 917-20 itself, a car so aerodynamically wide and so brazenly painted in bright pink with butcher's cuts labels across the bodywork that it instantly became one of the most talked about liveries in Le Mans history. It was meant as a joke, a dig at the car's chunky proportions, and somehow, well, that joke turned into one of the most beloved and recreated liveries in motorsports, appearing decades later on modern GT3 cars purely because fans demanded it. There is no other livery on this list that started as an insult and ended up as a legacy. Okay, number 1. The Martini stripes, that red, light blue, and dark blue diagonal racing stripe combination is, without argument, the single greatest racing livery ever created. And if you disagree, you are simply wrong. That's not an opinion. That's a scientific fact I just made up, but we will defend it to death. Now, it's graced the Porsche 917, the Lancia Delta, and the Brabham F1 cars, and somehow every single application still looks fresh instead of dated. There's something almost mathematically perfect about how those stripes wrap around the car's bodywork regardless of the shape underneath. That is what happens when a marketing department accidentally creates art. And there you have it, 14 of the greatest liveries in racing history, ranked with complete confidence and zero ability to actually defend most of these placements under real scrutiny. If you made it this far, you already know what's happening next. You're closing this video, opening the Steam, and reinstalling Forza Horizon purely to recreate the Pink Pig on a Miata that will never see the actual racetrack. No judgment there. I get it, brother. We've all been there. Some of us are doing it right now as we're watching this video. So let me know in the comments which livery got snubbed, because I already know at least 3 of you are furious I didn't include a livery you personally painted on a die-cast Hot Wheels car in 3rd grade. I'm Brad Danger. This is Ideal. Like, subscribe so we hit 2 mil by the end of the year. Check out some of these Ideal vids. Go to winthisIdealcar.com to get entered to win your dream car plus cash. And promise me one thing. Keep living the ideal lifestyle.